Imagine a day where the air, where it actually tastes faintly of honey and salt.
Which is such a specific, evocative image right from the start.
It really is. You are standing right in the middle of the city, pavement under your feet, miles and miles from the nearest coast.
Yeah.
Yet you can somehow taste the ocean on the breeze.
It sets a mood immediately.
Exactly. The source material we are looking at today starts with that exact sensory detail. It asks you to picture a world where the pigeons look plumper, the shopkeepers are smiling without any real reason, and, well, it just feels like the universe has finally exhaled.
It is a beautiful image. And, I mean, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting for us right off the bat.
Right.
It is setting up a psychological state just as much as a physical atmosphere. That feeling of a honeyed environment implies sweetness, sure, but also preservation, something that flows slowly but deliberately.
Spot on.
Yeah.
And that is exactly where we are heading today. We are prepping you for tomorrow, which is Sunday, February 22nd, 2026.
A very interesting day, according to our materials.
Very. We have a stack of sources today from Tarot by High C that are, frankly, a little different from our usual fare.
We are usually deep in the weeds with hard data or news reports.
We are. But today we have a technical astrological forecast for the day, which is standard for this kind of source. But alongside it, we have this companion narrative piece called StoryScope,
Which functions essentially as a fictional case study of the energy.
Yeah.
And honestly, looking at these two together is completely fascinating because usually, astrology is presented as this abstract list of do's and don'ts.
Very prescriptive.
Exactly. It can be quite rigid, but the narrative here shows us the actual friction involved in living it out. It paints a picture of what this planetary energy looks like when it hits a human nervous system.
And that is the mission of this deep dive. We aren't here to just read you a horoscope. We want to answer the central question that these texts pose.
Which is, what actually happens when the world simply loosens its belt?
Yes. And perhaps more importantly, why is our very first instinct to tighten ours in response?
It is a profound question. We are going to explore this really rare alignment happening tomorrow, Venus trine Jupiter.
Right.
We will look at the mechanics, obviously, but the real core of this is what the source calls the season of overflow. It is ultimately a study in the psychology of receiving.
So let's get into the mechanics first, just so we have a solid foundation.
Good idea.
The season of overflow sounds amazing, like something you put on a bumper sticker. But strictly speaking, what is actually happening in the sky on February 22nd?
Well, the headline event is Venus trine Jupiter. To really unpack that, you have to look at the specific players involved.
Okay, break them down for us.
Venus is your planet of values. It rules connection, money, pleasure, aesthetics, basically how we relate to others and what we enjoy.
And Jupiter.
Jupiter is the planet of expansion, philosophy, growth, and luck. Now, in traditional astrology, these two are often referred to as the benefics.
The good guys of the zodiac.
Exactly. They are the planets that bring the goodies.
And they are in a trine. For anyone listening who doesn't speak fluent zodiac, how do we translate that?
Think of a trine as the path of least resistance.
Okay.
Geometrically, it is a 120-degree angle, but energetically, it means pure flow.
So no clashing.
Right. When planets are square or opposed, they are essentially arguing. They have completely different agendas. But when they are trine, they are collaborating. They are singing the exact same note.
So you have the planet of love and money, basically high-fiving the planet of more and bigger.
That is the perfect way to phrase it.
Which really explains that overflow label. It is like throwing open all the windows in a really stuffy house all at once.
Precisely. The source material defines the energy of this transit very simply. It says there's no such thing as too much.
Wow.
Yeah, and that is exactly where the trouble usually starts for the human brain.
Oh, absolutely, because we are hardwired to believe that too much is fundamentally dangerous.
Right.
If something is too good to be true, it usually is. We're always just sitting there waiting for the other shoe to drop.
We really are. But this forecast is explicitly telling us to suspend that disbelief. It says this is a day to receive rather than push.
Receive rather than push.
That is a critical distinction in the text. In our modern culture, especially with work, we equate success with effort or even with suffering.
If you aren't sweating, you haven't earned it.
Exactly. This transit challenges that entire paradigm. It suggests that on this specific Sunday, connection and expansion are meeting without any friction.
You don't have to kick the door down because it is already wide open.
Yes. The text mentions that relationships flow easily and that pleasure comes without complication.
That phrase really stuck with me, without complication. It implies that in our normal day-to-day, we are the ones adding complication.
Oh, we do. We absolutely do. We overthink the text message someone sends us. We analyze a simple compliment until it sounds like a veiled insult.
We question the motive behind a gift.
Exactly. But the forecast notes that on this day, bonds mend easily. There is absolutely no need to be sharp with one another.
It says something really interesting about that through self-care and understanding, we are able to overcome the fears and insecurities that undermine our actions.
That is a fascinating pivot.
Right. From talking about luck and planetary magic straight into self-care.
It suggests that the barrier to this luck isn't actually the universe. The barrier is our own internal insecurity.
Because if you don't feel worthy of the luck, you are going to block it.
You will. The text encourages you to make the first move to mend strained bonds. But crucially, not through some big, dramatic confrontation.
No demands for an apology.
Right. It is approached through a sense of safety, emotional uplift. The text literally says we have permission to have fun with the process of figuring things out.
And it is not just the emotional side of things, is it? The practical side matters here, too.
Oh, heavily. Jupiter rules abundance in all its forms. The source specifically mentions uncovering new financial opportunities right alongside the increasing romance.
So wallet and heart.
Exactly. It notes that creative solutions are available for any lingering tension. It is a very holistic kind of abundance. It is basically suggesting that if you stop gripping the steering wheel so tightly, the car might actually drive much smoother.
Before we move on to the story that illustrates all of this, there's a very specific note about the evening of the 22nd.
The cherry on top, as it were.
Right. The source says, tonight, and then it shifts gears slightly from the really high energy of the daytime.
Yes, on the night of the 22nd, we have a Taurus moon making a sextile to both Jupiter and Venus.
Okay, we know what Venus and Jupiter are up to now. What does the Taurus moon add to this mix?
Taurus is an earth sign. It is sensory, grounded, very slow. And a sextile is another supportive angle, just slightly more active than a trine.
How does the text describe the vibe?
It describes this evening energy as having a generous tone that favors comfort and presence. But here's the really profound part. It offers the kind of grounded contentment that doesn't require anything to change.
Man, that is a heavy concept, being totally happy with things exactly as they are.
It goes against our conditioning.
It does. Usually, growth, which is Jupiter's whole domain, implies change, moving forward, acquiring the next big thing.
Right. We say, I will be happy when I get that promotion, or I will be happy when I buy the house.
Always deferring the joy.
This transit completely flips that. It says the expansion is found right here in the present moment. You don't need to change the scenery. You just need to actually appreciate the view. It is about satiety.
Feeling completely full.
Exactly.
So that is the astrological framework we were working with. Venus trine Jupiter, the season of overflow. Now I want to pivot to the StoryScope source.
This is where it gets really fun.
It really is. This narrative takes all that abstract energy we just talked about and puts it into a context that we can visualize.
It dramatizes the data. It shows us what this exact energy looks like when it runs into a skeptical modern human.
The story starts on a Thursday, setting the scene for this sudden season of overflow. As we mentioned in the intro, the entire atmosphere in the city transforms.
Very subtly at first.
Right. Shopkeepers are just smiling without cause. Lovers' quarrels evaporate like mist at sunrise.
And that wonderful detail about the pigeons looking like they have inherited a secret fortune.
Yes.
It is funny, but it paints a really clear picture of a world where the baseline stress level has just dropped to absolute zero. It becomes a high-trust environment.
Even the birds feel it. There was a minor character early on, Mrs Alder from the flower stall.
I love her.
She is handing out extra peonies with every single purchase, free flowers. And she tells the customer, the world has loosened its belt.
That line is doing so much heavy lifting for the theme. Loosened its belt. It implies that right up until this moment, the world was deeply constricted.
It's holding its breath.
Operating from pure scarcity, sucking its gut in, and then suddenly it exhaled. Metaphorically speaking, it made room for dessert.
So let's look at the two protagonists who have to navigate this sudden shift. First, we have Clara Moreau.
She is a restorer.
Right. And what a fascinating profession to choose for this theme. She fixes broken heirlooms, porcelain shepherdesses, cracked mirrors.
She deals exclusively with the past, specifically the broken past. She takes things that have lost their value and she restores their dignity.
And the text notes that her business is usually steady but never extravagant. She gets by. But on this honeyed Thursday, the floodgates completely open.
She gets 3 new clients in a single hour.
A tarnished silver locket, a violin with dull varnish, and a clock that hasn't ticked in a generation.
Look at the heavy symbolism there. A locket represents memory and love. A violin is music and expression. A clock is literally time itself.
Wow, yeah.
These clients are bringing her the broken pieces of life, love, art, time, and asking her to fix them.
And the clients are so incredibly certain about her. The first one says, certain you are the one. The second says, whoop, convinced of it. There's absolutely no hesitation from them.
And here is where the psychological study really kicks in. In a normal season of scarcity, if you suddenly got 3 complex, high-stakes jobs dropped on your desk in 1 hour, how would you feel?
Oh, completely overwhelmed. So stressed out. You would be thinking about deadlines, whether you have the right supplies, if you're charging enough money. You would probably just say, I am booked up, I can't do this.
Exactly. You would immediately go into defense mode. You would throw up walls. But Clara doesn't do that.
No, she doesn't.
The text says she feels no anxiety, no dread of miscalculation. Instead, she feels a strange buoyancy, a second pulse.
She is totally open to receiving the work.
She isn't resisting the influx at all. She inherently trusts that she has the capacity for it.
She is just surfing the wave. Now, contrast her reaction with our second character, Matteo Rossi.
The accountant.
Yes, the complete archetype of order.
Yeah.
He folds his napkins into precise rectangles. He is, as the text says, cautious by nature.
If Clara is the artist who works with her hands, Matteo is the auditor who works with his fears. He literally calculates risk for a living.
So Matteo opens his mail on this same Thursday. And instead of the usual bills or audit requests, he finds 5 letters proposing new ventures.
Partnerships, expansions.
Opportunities for profit without peril.
And because he is Matteo, and honestly, because he represents how most of us operate, what is his very first reaction? Does he jump for joy?
Not at all. He reads them twice, expecting a trap.
He is actively looking for the catch. This is the scarcity mindset in action. When the universe offers us something undeniably good, our logical brain instantly assumes it is a mistake or a scam. We think, why me? Why now?
But the text says the numbers aligned with a generosity that felt almost personal. He realized there was actually no trap.
That is the Venus trine Jupiter energy right there. It is abundance that feels deeply personal and completely safe.
It forces him to confront his own cynicism.
Yes. He realizes the trap wasn't hidden in the letters. The trap was entirely in his own expectation of bad news.
The story builds this incredible, shimmering atmosphere leading up to the moment these two finally meet. The bells of St. Ethelreda start ringing without anyone pulling the ropes.
And they ring with a sound that shimmers rather than clangs.
Shimmer versus clang, that is such a great distinction.
Even the soundscape of the city is different. A clang is harsh, metallic, jarring. It hurts your ears. A shimmer is resonant. Everything in this world has become softer. All the friction is just gone.
And socially, people are behaving differently too. Strangers are complimenting each other on the street, saying things like kindest eyes or contagious laughter.
And nobody is embarrassed.
That is the key phrase from the text. Without embarrassment. Think about how often we hold back a genuine compliment in real life.
All the time.
You see someone with a great jacket or a really nice smile and you think, I should tell them. But then you immediately think, no, that is weird. They will think I'm hitting on them or they will think I am crazy.
It is the fear of rejection, the fear of being awkward, ultimately the fear of being too much.
Exactly. We ration our kindness because we are terrified of the social cost. But in this season of overflow, that specific fear just evaporates.
The belt is loosened on our tongues too. We give freely.
So Clara closes up her workshop early. Matteo leaves his very tidy desk. And they end up at the fountain in the town square.
The source describes their meeting not as a collision, but as 2 rivers meeting.
Inevitable and without friction. There is that concept again. It wasn't a crash. It was a natural convergence.
They have this really beautiful dialogue there. Clara asks him, do you feel it? And Matteo says, as though the day has exhaled.
Then they go for coffee. And honestly, this is where I think the real core lesson of this deep dive lies. They sit down and they start sharing their good news with each other.
This is the ultimate test for them.
It really is. Usually, if you tell a very cautious accountant about a risky new venture, or you tell a solo artist about a massive sudden influx of work, the other person automatically plays devil's advocate.
It is almost a social reflex at this point. We say, oh, be careful, or Don't get your hopes up too high.
Are you sure that is safe? Don't count your chickens before they hatch? We actually think we are protecting the other person by doing this.
Right. We think we are being helpful. But they don't do that to each other here. Clara hears about his ventures and says, "That sounds marvelous. Why shouldn't it succeed?"
And Mateo tells her she needs to take on an apprentice because there is more than enough room for growth. They completely validate each other's expansion.
The source text has this brilliant line here. It says, "The word enough seemed obsolete. In its place stood abundance. Not greedy or grasping, but generous."
I really want to pause on that because it is so vital to understanding the sources. We very often conflate abundance with greed.
We do. We think wanting more is inherently bad.
Or we think that if I have more, it automatically means you have less. But this text is arguing that true abundance is actually generous. It creates space for other people.
Exactly. Mateo hiring people for his new ventures, Clara training an apprentice. Their personal growth is actually helping the entire community.
Scarcity is the selfish state.
Yes, because when you are scared, you hoard what you have. When you are abundant, you share it.
That is such a powerful reframing. Scarcity makes us small and selfish, while abundance makes us expansive and generous.
It leads perfectly into the climax of the story.
It does. The climax happens down on the riverbank, just as the sun is setting. And this is where the major internal shift happens for Mateo. He confesses something that I think really stops a lot of us in our tracks.
It is a very relatable confession.
He says, "I have spent years believing that love required careful budgeting, that joy must be portioned out."
Budgeting joy. That phrase just breaks my heart a little bit every single time I read it.
It is so sad, but so true.
It is this deeply ingrained superstition that if I am too happy today, I'm going to have to pay for it with some terrible tragedy tomorrow.
Like there's a cosmic ledger.
Exactly. It is the idea that there is only a finite amount of happiness in the entire universe, and we have to ration it out like wartime supplies.
It's the waiting for the other shoe to drop syndrome we talked about earlier. If I laugh too hard right now, I'm definitely going to cry later.
It is purely a defense mechanism. The logic is, if I don't let myself get too high, then the inevitable fall won't hurt as much.
But operating like that guarantees a completely flat life.
It guarantees you never actually feel the peak of anything.
And Clara corrects him in this moment. She touches his hand and simply says, "Perhaps we were wrong. There is no such thing as too much."
And right as she says that, the environment responds to them. The river swells. The boats tied to the docks literally untie themselves.
It is a stunning visual metaphor for release.
Control is just an illusion. The flow of the river is the reality. Those boats were never meant to be tied up forever.
Mateo finally realizes it. He says, "Then let us not ration this." And they kiss. And I love how the text describes this. It describes the kiss as whole and sufficient, stealing nothing from the future.
That brings us all the way back to the astrological advice we started with from the first source. Connection and expansion meet without friction.
They completely stopped rationing their emotion.
They decided to trust the overflow. They stopped treating the present moment like it was some kind of loan from the future that they would eventually have to pay back with interest. They just lived it.
But the story doesn't end with a kiss. And I think this is so important because it wasn't just a magical 24 hours and then everything went back to the daily grind.
It wasn't just a dream sequence.
No. The synthesis section of the text explains the lasting effects of this day. Clara's workshop becomes a place of constant laughter. She didn't just go back to being a lonely restorer.
And Mateo's investments genuinely nourished the Riverside community. Market stalls open, music plays. The abundance materialized in the real physical world.
Their relationship didn't just burn out in a flash of passion either. It expanded. The text calls it steady, confident, luminous.
And the broader impact is that the city learned from them. That is the ripple effect of this energy. Appreciation was exchanged like a currency that never depleted.
Once you see someone else loosen their belt, you finally feel safe enough to loosen yours.
It is highly contagious.
Bringing this all back home to you, the listener, the expert in the story, or the narrator, notes at the end that some people called what happened magic, and some people just called it good timing.
But Clara has the final word on it.
She does. She says, "Luck was always here. We simply decided to receive it."
That really is the thesis statement for the entire deep dive. We simply decided to receive it.
It connects directly back to the astrology of the day source. The transit for tomorrow, Venus trine Jupiter, is simply the invitation.
The energy is available to everyone. It is the honey and salt in the air.
But the variable is us.
Exactly. The variable is the observer. Are we Mateo before the shift? carefully checking the good news for a hidden trap? Or are we Mateo after the shift, saying, let us not ration this?
The stars might provide the good weather, but you still have to decide to open your windows.
That is a great way to put it. It is a challenge to the listener, really. The stars might be perfectly aligned tomorrow, but you still have to actually drop your own defenses. And honestly, that is a scary thing to do.
It is incredibly scary. It requires real vulnerability.
Stop being so sharp with one another, just as the text advised, and to stop being so sharp with ourselves.
Remember that early point about self-care, overcoming the insecurities that undermine our actions?
Yes. Because if you secretly feel unworthy of the overflow, you will subconsciously push it away. You will find the trap in the letter, even if there isn't them there.
You will sabotage the relationship because it just feels too good.
So let's operationalize this for a moment. Putting this into actual practice for tomorrow, Sunday the 22nd, the advice from the sources seems to be quite clear. If you feel a bond needs mending, make the move.
Yes, but make that move with softness, not with a demand.
And if you see an opportunity, whether it is financial or romantic, trust it. Assume positive intent for once.
And if you feel good, don't sit there and analyze why you feel good.
Don't audit your joy. Don't ask to see the receipts for your happiness. Just let yourself enjoy it.
And for tomorrow evening, embrace that grounded contentment we talked about. Don't look around for what needs to change. Look for what is already perfect right in front of you.
It deeply reframes the whole concept of enough. It is not about settling for less. It is about realizing that the current moment is already completely full.
Whole and sufficient, as the story said.
It is interesting, isn't it? We so often look to astrology to tell us what is going to happen to us. Will I meet someone? Will I get rich?
But this deep dive really suggests that astrology is actually telling us what could happen if we just get out of our own way.
That is absolutely the best use of these sources. Not using them as some rigid prediction of fate, but using them as a permission slip.
February 22nd is your permission slip to stop budgering your joy.
Well, this has certainly been quite a journey from a planetary alignment to a riverside romance.
It really has. But I think the message is loud and clear today. Whether you are looking up at the stars or looking right at your own life, the theme remains the same. Creative solutions and pleasure are available to you without complication.
That is the mantra, without complication.
So here's my final thought for you to take away. Something to chew on as you go about the rest of your day. If the world has indeed loosened its belt, just as Mrs. Alder said, what specific fear or insecurity are you still holding on to that is stopping you from making that first move?
That is the real question.
Is it pride? Is it the deep-seated fear that your kindness won't be reciprocated? Or is it simply the belief that you haven't suffered enough to have earned it yet? Because the forecast makes it clear that the energy is out there to support you right now. The friction in the world is gone. The only friction left might just be in your own mind.
A very provocative thought indeed.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the season of Overflow. We really hope you find your own version of that honeyed Thursday. See you in the next deep dive.